Hello, beautiful people of the internet. How are you doing today? My name is Jackie, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So, in this video, I'm going to be participating in Tis the Damn Readathon, a Taylor Swift readathon that's going on throughout the entire month of March. Today is March 2nd, so technically the readathon started yesterday, but I was really busy and I did not film anything for the vlog, and I did not read anything because I was working on an essay and just generally stressing. But today is a new day. I feel like I need to adjust this angle because I'm getting a glare. Is that better? No, I'll just be careful about which way I hold my head. So the point of this readathon is to complete a prompt for every single one of Taylor Swift's albums. There are 3 prompts for each album for you to choose from, as well as 3 blank space prompts that you can swap in for one of the albums. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to read a book for every single album, because some of the albums have prompts of activities that you can do that are not reading related, such as doing meditation or practicing some self-care. I think the first book I'm going to be reading for the readathon is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, because I just got my hold on Libby approved last night, so I just got the book. And I only read 1 chapter, and it did not start the way that I was thinking it was going to. I am using this for 1989, and the prompt I'm fulfilling is to read a book with a number in the title. Now, just some other assorted things that I want to accomplish at the beginning of the readathon. I need to get back into The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I started reading this book on March 16th, 2020. It is now March 2021, and I have not finished this book yet. I read all of this, still need to read this, and I have not been actively working on this book for a year. I started it in March, read a whole bunch, then put it down for a couple months because I wasn't in a fantasy mood and I was having a hard time getting back into it. Then I read a little bit in August, was kind of confused about what was going on because it had been so long, and because of that I've been too intimidated to pick it up again since then. So reading this book has been a roller coaster, but I do want to finish it because I was enjoying it and I read so much of it already. So I'm hoping that if I go online I'll be able to find a plot summary of this book, and then I can just read the plot summary until I get to something that sounds unfamiliar, and hopefully that'll jog my memory. If it doesn't, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I think I'm going to hopefully use this book for the prompt. I don't remember what album it's for, but it's to read a book that has romance but isn't in the romance genre. So hopefully I can find a summary of this online, because yeah, reading this has been a trip. If for some reason I can't find a summary of Priory of the Orange Tree online, I think I do have another book that I could use for that prompt. I started reading this in February, only got about 40 pages in, didn't even post about it on Goodreads, and I was thinking I was going to read it in February, but then at the second half of February I just wasn't reading like I was in the first half, so never got past page 40. And that is Cut Me Free by J.R. Johansson, which I picked out. This is also embarrassing. I picked this out to read in my try a chapter tag in February 2020. So once again, been a year. Have I read it yet? No. But you know, if it doesn't work out with Priory, I can read this, because this is a young adult mystery thriller, but it does involve a romance plot. And I do want to read this soon because I've been meaning to read it for a year, and if I don't read it soon, it's never going to happen. So I just need to commit and make this a priority. So if I could get both of these read this month, that would be great, but I already have a super large TBR. So we'll see. So at first when I started reading The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, I was a little confused. I was having a hard time getting into it, but now I'm about 30% of the way through, going to read some more before I go to bed, and I'm liking it much more now. So this is a mystery thriller that follows our main character, who every single day for 8 days wakes up in a different body. These are the different bodies of guests at a party at a remote English country house in the 1920s. It's like Downton Abbey, but with body switching and murder. I don't think any of the reviews I saw for this book before I picked it up mentioned that it took place in the past, but I really like that because I'm totally into that sort of thing. The daughter of this wealthy family is going to be murdered, and our main character needs to find out who killed her. If by the end of the 8th day he hasn't solved it, then he will start the loop again, losing all of his memories from the previous 8 days, starting off again with a blank slate. I really think this story is cinematic and it would work amazingly on screen. I just googled it and it turns out that Netflix has acquired the rights and is planning to make it into a miniseries, which sounds awesome. If that ends up coming out, I will totally watch it. I think this would work so well as a miniseries. So I am really enjoying it so far and I'm intrigued by the premise. The one thing I will say is that I knew there was some controversy with this book surrounding some potential fat phobia. Basically, one of the hosts, our main characters inhabiting Lord Ravencourt? I already forget his name, I'm sorry, Lord Raven something. He is extremely fat, and while our main character is in his body, he is continually mentioning over and over again how fat this guy is and how disgusted he is by him. And I can see why so many people were offended by this because it really does feel like overkill. Listen, you know, I used to be overweight, and when I was overweight, I could not walk upstairs like I can now. I really was not in the same physical shape, and if one day I woke up back in a fat body and I couldn't have the same mobility as I'm used to now, that would be really hard for me to deal with at first. I mean, he wakes up in the body of a man who can't even get into the bathtub by himself. So I understand why that would be difficult if that's something you've never had to deal with before. However, it goes on and on and on where he's constantly bringing up how fat this guy is and how gross it is, that it just feels completely unnecessary and triggering. I think the thing is that if you're overweight, you might have difficulties, you might not be in the same physical shape, however, you're not innately disgusting, and so that's the message here that I have an issue with. I am enjoying the book so far, and I want to see where it's going to go, but I definitely think that you should know about this content before going in, especially if you think you might be triggered by it. Also, I just turned the ceiling fan on and I didn't realize it was going to look like that on camera, so my apologies. I'm enjoying this book so much, it's gotten to a point where I want to ignore all my real life responsibilities to read it. Yeah. I'm 68% of the way through now, and I have no idea who the murderer is. No, I don't even have a theory, and usually I'm really hard to fool, but I am so confused. I have no idea what's going on. I just finished reading The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and I am still shook. I was thinking this was going to be a 5-star for sure. I was so into it, and I liked the ending, but now I'm not sure. I'm like, is it a 5? Is it a 4? Is it a 4.5? I need to process this because I can't right now. I can't. Like, what happened? I'll say the reveal at the end, I never saw it coming. There were some small things that I figured out along the way, but the actual answer of who was behind it all, never saw it coming. I was shocked. And I think in most aspects it makes sense in retrospect, but there are some things I'm confused about. And I think an issue I have with it is I don't know if the motive was enough, and I can't really fully explain my issue with it because the big bad commits several crimes, and some of them I do think the motive was believable, but there's one where it basically just hinges on the character being a secret sociopath. Is that a spoiler to say? I don't know. I feel like I couldn't even theorize when I was reading this book because there was just so much happening. I was having information overload, and I do think it was clever how some of the little hints came together in the end because all this information that I couldn't process, it was relevant in the end. I don't know, maybe I'll give this a 4.5. I am so conflicted. Usually when I'm conflicted between a 4 and a 5, I just go with 4.5 because it's smack dab in the middle. Overall though, I did really enjoy that. I was so anxious to finish it because I was so into the book and there was so much happening and I really wanted to know what the resolution was going to be because I didn't have a theory. Not until the very end, and I wasn't entirely right. Let's just put it like that. I don't know what book I'm going to start next for the readathon. I have to start reading Little Women, which I put on my readathon TBR because it's required for my class, though I'm going to be reading that over the next couple weeks because I have to read whatever is assigned for that day of class. Maybe I'll start Jane Steele. I think that's kind of calling out to me right now, so maybe I'll give that a try this weekend. Hello? There's a bird convention in the backyard. You see all those birds, Drizzle? What are they doing? There's so many of them, oh my god. Wow. What do you think? So I've started reading Jane Steele. I got about 85 pages in, and so far I like it. I don't know if I would call this a Jane Eyre retelling per se, but it is described as a retelling on Goodreads. The back of the book says reimagining. I think that's a better word. It's not a retelling, it's a reimagining, but since it was still marketed as a retelling, I'm counting it for this prompt and the readathon anyway. The main character, Jane Steele's life is very similar to Jane Eyre's, and the book is told in a similar style. The character of Jane actually reads Jane Eyre, and she says in the beginning of the book that she connected to it due to the similarities between their lives, which is why I think it's more so a reimagining. It's not a direct retelling of Jane Eyre's story. However, Jane Steele's life is very similar, where she's orphaned at a young age, she has an abusive aunt who treats her terribly, and she ends up going to an awful boarding school. The twist is that Jane Steele has always been told that she is a very wicked girl, and we learn from the very beginning of the book that when she was young, she committed her first murder when she causes the death of her cousin, who is always very inappropriate towards her. So far, so good with this. I've just gotten to the point where she is at this school, so not super far into the book yet, and I can't talk for much longer because I can hear one of my cats screaming. They want something. For once, my bed is actually made with all the pillows on and everything. We stand. So, I haven't read any more of Jane Steele since I last talked to you guys. However, I have started reading Little Women, which I am reading for my class on children's literature this semester, and I'm also using for the prompt for Speak Now. If this was a movie, read a book with a film adaptation, because this one has like 4 film adaptations that I can think of. When I was a kid, Little Women was my absolute favorite book. I had an abridged version that used simplified language for children. Absolutely loved it. Jo March, childhood hero, because she wants to be a writer. That's my lifelong dream. So I loved this book so much as a kid, and I never read the full unabridged adult version. So finally getting to that. Don't know how much I'm going to talk about it in this vlog because I am reading it for school, so I might just give you a quick wrap-up of thoughts towards the end of the month. Also, since the bathrooms just got cleaned today, I think tonight I am going to do one of the prompts for Lover, which is you need to calm down, do some calming self-care by taking a lovely bubble bath in the nice clean tub. And then I can read Jane Steele while I'm in the bath. That, my friends, is my idea of a nice evening. Let's take a gander at all my bath products. We have Lavender Bubbling Bath Fizz. This bath bomb, which looks like a donut, and it says, "Don't eat me." Thank God you had that sticker on here, because otherwise I totally would have taken a bite of this. This is cantaloupe. I was gonna use this, but I'm worried it might leave a ring on the tub, and I don't know. That's a lot to clean up when we just got the bathrooms clean today. Then I also have these two. This one is actually for the shower, but I have these two bath bombs. Ooh, making a mess. This one I think is also cantaloupe. Don't remember. I took them out of the packaging. And what about this one? What is this one? Can't smell a damn thing. So maybe I'll use this one and it'll just be a fun surprise what it smells like. I just finished reading Jane Steele. I think I'm gonna give it 3 stars, maybe 3.5, because I did like it, but I don't have a lot to say about it. I liked how it referenced some of the plot elements from Jane Eyre. I like that the romance wasn't insta-love. And there was also a character where the character does not use any labels for their sexuality given the historical setting, but based on his descriptions, I would classify him as asexual, probably an aromantic asexual, and that was representation that I was not expecting. Still wondering if it was the best form of aro-ace representation, but don't get a lot of asexual rep in media, so overall, this was a pretty good reimagining of the Jane Eyre story. It wasn't extremely thrilling, it wasn't extremely surprising, but it was fun overall. And so, for my next book for the Readathon, I just checked out on the Libby app. He Started It by Samantha Downing. I wanted to get a physical copy, but there was a wait at the library, so I'm just going with the ebook, and I will update you when I have some thoughts to share about that. Also, forgot to mention, I fulfilled another one of the prompts, which was from the album Taylor Swift. Picture to burn, post about your book on Instagram or the social platform of your choice. So, Instagram, you can follow me there at Jackie Reads and Writes, if you'd like. I'm now 50% of the way through He Started It. Honestly, I have no idea where this is going. So last night I finished reading He Started It by Samantha Downing. I liked this. I'm not sure what exactly my rating would be. I gave it a 4-star on Goodreads. Maybe it's more so like a 3.5, but for Goodreads purposes I just marked it as 4 because Goodreads doesn't allow half stars. This is about 3 siblings, Eddie, Beth, and Portia. Beth is our narrator, and they are going on a road trip along with Eddie's wife, Krista, and Beth's husband, Felix, because their wealthy grandfather stipulated in his will they have to recreate this road trip they went on when they were kids if they want to get their share of his inheritance. And the first time they went on this road trip, some bad things happened, and bad things are going to happen to them again on this trip, and they suspect that they're being followed. There is not a likable character in the bunch. Everybody here has extreme character flaws, and honestly, I couldn't empathize with any of them because they were all kind of bad people to varying degrees. One thing that I think this book has in common with Samantha Downing's previous book, My Lovely Wife, is that it's messed up. All of the characters are messed up, dark people. The relationships are complex and messy. So if you're somebody who wants to have a character you can root for in your thriller, I don't think you're gonna get that here. because all of them are bad people. The book did go to some places that I was not entirely expecting, and the ending was crazy. There was just so much that was happening all at once, and I was like, what? However, I feel like this is not a thriller that had a lot of foreshadowing, so it's not necessarily like you're going to get to the ending and be like, oh, here are all the signs that I missed, I should have figured it out. Also, I would say the suspension of disbelief is pretty high. The ending is not the most realistic thriller ending. I still enjoyed it, but I could see why some people would find it unbelievable, because it kind of is. He Started It is not the most fast-paced, action-packed thriller. I saw some people on Goodreads said they were having a hard time getting through it and thought it was boring. I personally was still interested in what was going on, and once I got into it, I read it pretty quickly. It has short chapters, and I just breezed through it. I think my feelings about He Started It are pretty similar to another thriller I read recently, You Are Not Alone, where I liked it while I was reading it. However, I think it's not gonna stick with me for a really long time, and a couple months from now I probably won't remember all the specifics of the book. I liked it, but it's not one of my new all-time favorite thrillers. That's why I'm kind of torn whether I should give it a full 4 or a 3.5. I did give You Are Not Alone a 4, but in retrospect, I'm like, maybe it was a 3.5, so I'm not entirely sure. I will definitely read Samantha Downing's next book, For Your Own Good, when that comes out, because I did love My Lovely Wife, and though I didn't like this one as much, it was still pretty good. Now, I guess I have to start reading If We Were Villains. I hope that I like it. I'm nervous about it because when I DNF'd it before, the characters just annoyed me so much, so hopefully I can get through it this time for the sake of the readathon. But first, let's talk Little Women. This is the aforementioned part of the video where I gush about what it's like reading this book. I'm gonna finish it this weekend because that was assigned for my class, and man, this book is so good. Would I say it's my all-time favorite book? No. But it's really, really good. I had a hard time getting into it at first because the beginning of the novel is so episodic and it's clearly meant to impart a moral on young readers, but the further along I got into it, the more absorbed I was in the story. I really love all the characters. Jo was my favorite as a kid, and yes, she is awesome, but I definitely appreciate all the sisters. And I love the Amy bits. I don't think I really appreciated Amy as a kid, but God, she is hilarious in this, and I love her. I don't love some of the overt Christian messaging in this, not really my thing, and sometimes I think it can be a little judgy towards women. Like there was a scene where Jo and Laurie were talking about how women shouldn't flirt, which was like, yeah, and I think Jo definitely has some issues with femininity, and I know there's been a debate where people say maybe Jo was a lesbian. You know, she talks about how so often she wishes she had been born a man, but I do think that also could just be a product of her living in a society where women have these really harsh expectations placed upon them, so she resents femininity because femininity comes with certain oppressive expectations and these oppressive gender roles in this period that she doesn't want. Overall, though, I do really, really love this book. It is so sweet, so cute. I love the characters. I love the familial relationship. And unpopular opinion, I know there's been a lot of debate about who ends up with who in this book, but I think Louisa May Alcott totally knew what she was doing and everything worked out perfectly. I think I might have to make an entire video talking about why Jo and no spoilers, but you know who I'm talking about, would have never worked as a couple, because this is my classic literature hot take, okay? Nobody agrees with me, but this is how I've always felt, and this is the hill I will die on, okay? Anyways, I love this book. It's adorable. All-time fave, yes. It's like in my top 5 books, probably. It's amazing. Highly recommend. Well, I have gotten further along in this book than I did last time. Not that that's saying much. The one character in this book is being such an ass, just beating up the people who are supposed to be his friends, making scenes, threatening people publicly with witnesses. I feel like he should have been expelled at this point. But then again, in some American universities, you can rape somebody and still not get expelled. So there's that.
Don't you just love the smell of flowers in the springtime? Well, I do love that new car smell. Speaking of new cars, did you hear the news? This month, Beaver Toyota and Beaver Chevrolet will be giving away a brand new car. A brand new car. That's right. Just have registered in person and you can be...
Well, it's almost 11 o'clock at night, and the lighting in here is bad. But I just finished this book. I was gonna give it 3 stars, but the ending was so underwhelming, I'm wondering if it's actually a 2. I know a lot of people love this book, and there's also a lot of people who hate this book. I am kind of somewhere in between, because honestly, this sounds so harsh. The way I would describe it is it's like The Secret History, but Shakespearean and not as good. The characters quote Shakespeare excessively, and it kind of ruins the flow of the story in places. They put on so many Shakespearean performances in this book and do so many soliloquies that at a certain point I just skipped over those parts. I love Shakespeare, but it just didn't advance the plot and it got excessive. I feel like this book, again, this is gonna sound harsh, this book uses Shakespeare as a crutch, and it really ruins the flow of the story. The characters were fine, some of them really not that distinct, and what frustrated me about this is I feel like if the characters had told the truth from the beginning, they would have saved themselves a lot of trouble. This is like The Secret History, basically in the fact that it's a group of friends in a dark academia setting and then someone dies. However, I feel like had the characters just been completely honest and gone down a different path, everything could have been avoided. Obviously, okay, like, don't get this the wrong way. Every time there's a book that involves a murder plot, obviously murder is not the answer and they should have made different choices. But I'm just saying there are so many things that they clearly should have done that they chose not to do, and it frustrated the hell out of me. And the ending was just okay. It did not meet my expectations. I kind of went out with a whimper instead of a bang. I don't think this was a bad book. I think it was well written, but it just disappointed me in so many ways, and that's a shame. I think it had a good premise, it had good writing, but some of the choices just, I couldn't get behind. So now I have one other book that I was hoping to read for the readathon. I need to finish The Priory of the Orange Tree. I have 300, 400 pages left, so hopefully I can finish that this weekend. You are allowed to double up for the readathon, but I have been meaning to finish The Priory of the Orange Tree for so long. I've been reading this book off and on for a year, so hopefully this weekend I can finish that. So I have one more activity prompt for the readathon, which is to do some meditation. And I've tried to meditate before, but I always get frustrated because for meditation you're supposed to turn off your thoughts and just relax. But I have so much anxiety, my mind never stops, and I would always get frustrated by my ability to make my mind go blank. And I know they say that that's natural at first, you just have to power through it, acknowledge your thought, push it away. So I'm gonna look up a quick meditation video online and try to go through it. I'm a very tense, stressed out person, so if I could learn to meditate, maybe that would actually help me in my life. Well, I don't think I have fully reached my zen yet, but all in all, not too bad. You know, maybe this is something that I need to commit to doing more regularly to let go of some of my tension in life. I have a yoga mat and I've only used it once. So, you know, maybe I should get back at that. Now that I feel relaxed, I am ready to get back into reading Priory of the Orange Tree. I'm going to finish it before the end of the month, and I am going to read a summary of the plot so that I can remember where I was in the book when I last put it down. So, I finally finished this book. Only took me about a year. Overall, I did really like this, but I think had it been a series instead of a standalone, then the world and some of the minor characters could have been developed more. I think there are supposed to be other books set in this world, but they're not sequels per se. Like, there might be another novel set in the same universe but following different characters. I really liked the main characters. I really liked the romance in this, the sapphic romance, and there is a lot of LGBTQIA representation. There are characters who are gay or bisexual. Obviously that language is not used because this is an epic fantasy where that terminology would be anachronistic, and I believe that the author Samantha Shannon has said that two of the main characters are on the asexual spectrum. I don't think that's made clear in this book other than subtext, but she has gone on record and said that is what she wrote them as. Overall, I thought this was a really interesting book. I thought it was so interesting how it had both a more Western-inspired and a more Eastern-inspired kingdoms, and it was a really large, expansive world with many different kingdoms. Again, because this was only a standalone, I think some of them were not as well developed as others, and it had plot twists that surprised me. It had character deaths that genuinely upset me, so I was emotionally invested, and I was interested in what was going on in the story. I just think that there's a reason why fantasy books are usually in series, because since they are so extensive, it usually takes a lot of time to fully develop everything, so it's just a give and take. I think I would probably give The Priory of the Orange Tree 4 stars, and I would recommend it to people. It is a chunker. It's 804 pages, not including the glossary in the back, or the timeline, or all that other stuff, but it took me almost a full calendar year to finish this book, so do not feel bad if it takes you a long time to get through it. So that's it for this reading vlog. I have completed all the prompts I wanted to complete for Tis the Damn Readathon, and I did not have to double up on anything. Honestly, this went like better than I hoped it would. I think this was a success. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more from me. I post new videos every single Wednesday. My social media links are down below if you want to follow me on Tumblr, Instagram, or be my friend on Goodreads. Thank you so much for watching this long-ass video. We're probably approaching 40 minutes by now, so thank you if you're still there. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a peaceful rest of your day. Bye, and I will see you in the next video.